Okay, hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to do a little video here on my trip to Buffalo Trace, the Bourbon Distillery, which they make a lot more than bourbon, but obviously Weller and Sons, that's one of the more well-known areas. You see the Buffalo Trace brand, Eagle Rare, Blantons, of course, everybody knows it's in the bourbon world. But here's some of the barrels right outside of Buffalo Trace. E.H. Taylor Jr. Just a lot of really nice history here. I did get to do a tour, so you're going to see everything from the warehouses they store the bourbon here. It's a pretty neat place. I would highly recommend doing a bourbon tour. There's several of them. I did the Buffalo Trace tour, or the Trace tour, and we did get to go in the warehouse. There's Warehouse D. We got to see how the bourbons age and how they evaporate, how the older bourbons have less and less amount in the barrels. But it was a real education, to say the least. And during Prohibition, how bourbon was written as a prescription for medicines, and it was amazing how many people were sick and had to drink bourbon as a medicine during Prohibition. Go figure. But nice tour guide. Really liked going into the rick houses and stuff too, and just the history was amazing. A lot of pictures here you can see. There's where we're getting ready to, the sign above where you walk in where the barrel houses are.
We have a lot of vehicles, golf carts, forklifts, everything like that. So when I move, you guys move with me. We do have a big group today, so I want to kind of get going so you can see everything. The other thing is, please take pictures, please ask questions. This tour is not for me, it is for you guys. So if you have a question, please ask. All right, I will do my best to answer. The father of modern day bourbon, he's got to do a little bit more than just bring some copper over, right? Well, he actually found out that about 44 degrees or so, that your wood for your barrel actually would go dormant, which means it stops expanding and contracting. So those of you who have not been to distilleries before, you may not know this, but that's how you get bourbon. And if it stops doing that, then you don't get any bourbon, okay? So what he did is he actually implemented the steam heating into these warehouses. That's what all these pipes are for, the bigger ones at least. Now, this pipeline right here, as you can see it going all the way around, I told you our bottling hall was right back here. If you guys want to look back there, that it's kind of orange triangle part, that's where the bottling hall was. That part of the distillery is where all of our production is happening. You saw where the new bottling hall is, so we just built a bourbon roller coaster for it. Derby day, Derby weekend, close them about October-ish. Just depends on the weather. Now, let's talk about a warehouse real quick. If you think of a warehouse, I want you to think of your own house for a minute. Top floor is your attic, your middle floor is your living room, and your bottom floor is like your basement. Now, we don't rotate our barrels, so this wasn't a thing yet. So he'd say, you four, go down there, you each pick a barrel. He would come down there, sample it, whichever one he liked the most, he'd say, bottle it up, get it ready for the party. He'd serve it and send his guests home with bottles. For some reason, when I asked to do this today, they tell me no. But, you know, I try. So when Elmer was here during the bourbon bust, is what we call it, during the 80s. Nobody was drinking bourbon. They're drinking vodka, Zima, tequila, wine coolers, beer. They're not drinking bourbon. We went from 1,000 employees to about 50. We were this close to shutting down. That's also when Sazerac came along. But he decided that he was going to introduce something that kept his customers interested, which was single barrel bourbon. But he named it Blantons in honor of Albert Blanton. So whatever single barrel is your favorite today, you can thank Elmer T. Lee for it. All right. Welcome to the branding shed, guys. We used to actually brand our barrels in here. We didn't have cell phones back in the day, but we had our own fire station. So if you guys saw the Firehouse Cafe, it's right outside. But we had that because we had a real live fire in here in the middle of a distillery. So it was a little dangerous. It used to be right where this little concrete slab is here, but what we use this building for now receiving an inspection. So what these guys are going to be doing here shortly, they are inspecting these barrels and unloading them from our trucks. These barrels are brand new oak barrels coming in from our cooperage. We are one of two pairings, so we need to act about 2,000 barrels in here a day. That's the goal. Now, let's talk about a barrel. This is how they start. There's about between 30 and 33 staves per barrel. The way they're cut is very specific, so they have just a slight little angle so they can make your barrel shape. Now guys, the only reason we use barrels is because we've been using them since 310 BC. They are easy to move, they are watertight, and they can stack. Alright? This is Montana Winery. So what you're smelling, usually you'd be smelling evaporation, the angel share, okay? Not to get greedy, right? What you're smelling today is a little bit of both. So you're smelling that, you're also smelling our dry house with our grain, our spent grain. That's why it smells like food. Or barn, maybe. We use our distiller's grain off, it's your spent grain that comes off of your still. So the way that a column still works is, so imagine that my water bottle here is my column still. So I'm going to have these little slats throughout. Think of them as filters. Okay. I'm going to send in my mash, so that's after fermentation. Send it in, and those filters are catching that grain. So your corn, your rye, your malted barley, maybe your wheat, depending on the mash. We'll talk about it in a second. But it's catching all that. Now some of that we actually take and we use it is called setback. We will put it into our fermentation tanks. What this does is it actually speeds up fermentation. How many people have talked about Blantons? Yeah, this is why. Every single bottle of Blantons in the world comes through this building here, and it is all done by hand, the entire process. It is also one barrel at a time. But you guys came on a really cool day. There's non-bottling Blantons in here. They're bottling E.H. Taylor Single Barrel, as well as Eagle Rare. Now the Eagle Rare, that is their Single Barrel Select program. So they're not going to do a ton of cases for that one right now. Just whatever comes out of that first barrel. These, E.H. Taylor, as well as your Blantons, they're going to do about 400 cases a day per shift, per line. Okay? Now, there are only 6 bottles of these cases, so on an average day this year, you're going to be sending out about 4,800 bottles a shift. These barrels are loaded up on the backside on an elevator. They lift them up, they roll them out the top. Okay? We're going to work from left to right so we can roll them out as we're finished. They're going to dump these barrels into a holding tank in the back. At this point, they're going to check the proof. What they're trying to do is figure out how many gallons of water they need to add to get to, if it's for Blantons, to get to 93 proof. For single barrel, E.H. Taylor, it's to 90 proof. Okay? We're doing this 2 ways, one of which by hand with an equation, the other is by machine. So always double check it. Guys, if you mess this up, there's no going back. Alright? After we add the water back here, it's going to be sent downstairs to be chill filtered. Chill filtering removes your fatty acids. This removes your cloudiness and a little bit of color from your product. Have any of you all ever heard of an uncut, unfiltered bourbon? Maybe Stack Junior. Okay? That's what we make here. What that means is it's dumped out of your barrel, it's going through a very fine mesh filter, and then it's bottled.
Okay, that's the end of the video part of the tour, but pretty neat place to say the least. You didn't see all the tour, but just some of the highlights. Here's one of my favorite parts is the Pappy Van Winkle bottles, and all the rare bottles of bourbon in the display case in that bottling room. Everything that you can possibly imagine. Special collections, but really nice people. Really enjoyed myself. We had a really good time, and of course we did get to do a tasting afterwards. I went up there and it showed the barrels being made there, which was really kind of neat, as that digital clock keeps right on going. There's the tasting room we're getting ready to go into, and there's my tasting selection. Got to try the Eagle Rare, which I got a bottle of that, and there's the bottles throughout. But hey, thanks for watching. Hope you continue to watch. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll talk with you soon. ECP, over and out.